evening, everybody. This is Dr. Hack, and we're going to drop back into the middle game for a little while today. And I've got 4 positions for you, directly from my games this week. And they are great. I love these positions. We found some good ones. What I want you to do is I want you to look at the position that I put in front of you, and I want you to just to decide what would you do. These could be tactics. These could be just positional moves. These could be anything, okay? This is not a puzzle. This is from one of my games. All right, see what you can do. So let's quickly recap the method we're using, right? So last time we said the first thing you do is you look at weaknesses on your opponent's half of the board, and if you can spot some, then you try to find all the moves that attack those things or remove defenders from those things. Makes a lot of sense to do it that way first, because if you can win some material, you're just ahead. And then if you can't win some material, if you can't find a way to win those things, you drop into your second level of thinking, which is find your worst piece and make it better, or find his best piece and make it worse. And that's what we decided last time was a good place to start. That was Middle Game 101. Now we're gonna add another layer to that on this set of positions today.
And what else has layers, Donkey? You need to ask the question.
If it's my opponent's turn to move again, what will he do? Okay? And I want you to make a prediction. Be bold. Look for things he can capture. Look for things he can do craziness to. Okay? Because it's not your pieces, they're his pieces. Give them away if you have to. But I want you to figure out what you would do if you were him. And then I want you to do all those things that we talked about last time. All right, here's what that looks like to me. If I look at White's pieces and I say, if it's my turn to move again, what am I going to do? I hone in on this piece right here, and I say that knight doesn't have a whole lot of squares to move to. It can't go back, really, right? I really don't want it to... It can't go forward either, sorry. I really don't want to put it on h6, because if I do that, it's just on the rim, and we know a knight on the rim is Tim. He's not dim, he's not grim, he's just Tim. But we don't really want him there either, you know? Tim doesn't want to be on the rim. And so maybe we send Tim to the middle. But if he goes there, and you look at all the squares he can move to from here, he's completely stuck and he's trapped, and there's going to be some attacks, and he's going to be lost. So this knight is in danger if White plays g4 of having to move back to here. And now we can even spot if he doesn't do anything, you know, but defend his pawn. We can't even develop our other knight because now there will be a fork, and that's unfortunate, right? To have a knight stuck on the rim and a knight stuck on g8 for many moves, oof. So that's the threat that I spot in my mind. And I say, okay, well, now let's do all that stuff. Where are the weaknesses? Well, I think this one's the most likely the one to spot first, right? Because we have 2 pieces attacking it. He has 2 pieces defending it. If we could bring one more piece to attack that, that would be fantastic. Because taking that a few times would make a fork between these two, even. You have the bishop or a queen sitting here, huh? So that would be great. If we could also get this pawn to move, the same thing would happen. We'd take it once, he'd take it, we'd take it again, right? We'd win some stuff. So one defender could be moved. We could try to remove the queen. If we could do any of those things, this would be lost, so that's definitely a weakness. Also, this is a hanging pawn. It's a weakness. And those are the only 2 I can spot. I think other than that, you could say the rooks are weak, but the rooks are always weak, guys. At the beginning of the game, they're never defended by anything. So maybe we can get to them, maybe we can't. We definitely can't get to that one, right? He's way over there. I mean, it's not. I guess it's not as far away as I would think, but it's still that's a tough ask for a knight to do something like that. Okay, so this is what we're looking at, and we asked the question: can we get to this one? Is there anything we can even do? Right? We could try moving the bishop here. That's something. But then, you know, what happens if he does this whole attack the knight thing? Oh dear, right? We move back, and then he traps the bishop. Wah, wah. Right, so that one, I don't know about that one. I think this pawn, if that's our only way to go and attack it, I don't think that's going to work very well. And so we're gonna uncircle that. And what about this? Can we bring any more pieces to attack that? Not very quickly, can we? It's going to take many moves for a rook to get through here. It's going to take several moves for a knight maybe to get up there to attack it. No pawns can get there. Can't remove this pawn. I think the pieces are safe. I think if we're playing black, we have to go into our second level of thinking here. What's our worst piece and how do we make it better? Okay, well, we've got these 2, maybe these 4 that haven't moved, and maybe we should try to move them. The bishop, I think that's easy to know where that goes, right? It goes. It's only got one square, and that allows the rook to enter the game and start to pressure another weakness. That's pretty okay. That's a nice idea. We have this knight coming into the game to its most obvious place, I think, here on f6. And this rook, maybe it will enter the game after we castle. I kind of doubt it's going to do anything over here. It doesn't seem to have a job or a purpose at the moment. But maybe if we castle, maybe we can move one of these pawns forward and maybe open the center, or maybe he can come all the way across the board and work from over here. We don't know yet. He's hard to predict. This one, more straightforward, but still pretty far away. So we're really looking at these two and trying to figure out what do we do with them. And the one that goes first has to be the one that also handles the threat. And I bet you guys have already said this and you're screaming it, but I had to go slow on this one, guys. I had to go slow. Don't worry, we'll do the next ones more efficiently. So we play knight to f6. And now I'm going to show you the actual game and how it went. So I got these all set up I can click on it. Okay, my opponent played the queen to c2. We go knight to f6. And he plays the pawn to h3. You can see what he's doing, right? He's planning this. He's saying, hey, I'm coming for you, buddy. G4 move is going to make your knight go back, and I'm going to fork. And we look at that and we go, oh no, we're scared. We are scared, but actually he overlooked our tactic. And you guys already see it because you know where the weakness was. And when you know that if we play the knight to e4 and the piece leaves, that's the defender leaving the defense. And we can just now take it a few times, get the fork, and get the rook. So my opponent's in big trouble here. He's got to do something to save his piece again, and he does. And that allows us to remove the dark square defender. And now all the dark squares are weak, including this one and this one. And we're going to use those in a quick tactical skirmish here to win some material. Okay, here it comes. Queen checks. If the king were to come forward, I think we would checkmate him by just running in and using those two dark squares. But so he doesn't. He goes back, like a good player. And now the knight is in, threatening a rook. He must move the rook? Well, he probably shouldn't, huh? He's going to lose the rook or the knight. He decided he would lose the knight. And the game ended here. He resigned. And we go back and we look at, how accurate was it? Pretty good, right? We played all the moves we were supposed to. And that's how we got to the ideas. Okay, this is white to move. See what you can do. Right, so I sincerely hope that when you looked for threats, you spotted the threat on this one. If it's black's turn to move again, he's absolutely going to take your bishop because it's not guarded by anything, right? So we got to do something about that. Well, let's not skip any steps, Let's look for all the weaknesses on his side of the board first, before we deal with the threat. Okay, and we see that this pawn up here is attacked once and defended once. That's a weakness. And this pawn up here is attacked once and defended once. That's a weakness. And you may be able to convince me that the bishop is a weak spot too, because technically it's attacked once and defended once, but there's a pawn in the way. Maybe you can get the pawn to move at some point in the future, and that may be weak, right? But you could definitely convince me these two are, just maybe that one. So let's look at these two pawns around the king. And let's see if we can do anything with that. And when you're making a long attacking calculation, you really want to start with the most forceful moves you can, because it keeps the calculation smaller. It makes it more linear, right? There's not as many moves to consider. Let me show you what I mean. If we were to take this queen and move it up and threaten checkmate, that's a pretty good move, right? But how many ways does black have to handle that threat? Well, he can move the pawn to g6. He can move the pawn to h6. He can move the pawn to f5, right? All of those things handle the threat of checkmate. Now, some of them do it better than others. It's obvious that you'd want to play g6, I think. But we gave him 3 options. How many options does he have if we take this first? Well, I think exactly 1. You could briefly calculate this one, but when you see the queen coming in and you go, is he really getting out of this okay? This is about to be check, and this is coming in with checkmate, all the stuff, hitting the place. I don't think he should do that, so he's going to have to take the bishop. So now we've got 1 move, and he had to handle it exactly that way. So it's a very linear calculation. Now we get him in check. He only has 1 move, right? And now we take this pawn. And he's only got 1 move because we're gonna take checkmate here if he does anything else. If he moves the rook out of the way, checkmate. Oof, right? And so we give him a check. He's only got one move. If you got this far, that's actually kind of impressive. I will tell you that in my experience, right, teaching about 1,000 rated players, somewhere in that range, most 1,000 rated players and below can only see 3 ply into the game, meaning you play your move, you can think of maybe one of their moves, and maybe you can think of another one of your moves if you've gone as deep as you can go, and then it gets real cloudy, right, and you start missing stuff. At least that level of players do. And so if you know that the average player, the normal guys, like the most of them that are out there, are only going that deep into the game, and you see that we've just calculated like 5 moves in, that's impressive, right? That was pretty good. You must be an upper class player if you managed to do this already. Except it was a linear calculation, 1 move and 1 possible response. So maybe you got here. I don't know. But then if you got here, maybe you spotted G6 wins the game. Because we're still threatening checkmate. He can't move the rook again because this will still be check. He'll move over and we'll go checkmate there. Right? He can't do anything else to stop this from happening, so he must take the pawn. Okay. And then we give the last, check, and he's over in the corner. How do we get him? Mate in 3. We turn on the computer and it says mate in 4. Because there's a bishop block. Oh, it doesn't even. Oh, goodness. Come on, computer. Get there. Oh. We're just plus 10. That's not good enough. I would do something like this, and maybe we'd check, and maybe they'd sack the thing, and maybe they wouldn't. And maybe we get checkmate, right? How many moves into the future was that? 8? Great Scott. But that attack seems to work. It seems to play out very nicely. We get a great game out of it. It's worth doing. So do we save the bishop? Well, not if we're going to do that. If you decided that was a good idea, well done. Let's see what happened in the game. Okay, so I played bishop takes pawn, of course, right? And then the check, okay. And then I took the pawn. We've seen this all before. And then I gave the check, okay. And now we play g6. Great. He didn't notice that there was checkmate in 1. Sometimes you do all this work before you play the move. You're calculating all this stuff. You go 8 moves into the future and you're like, I got this, I can win. And then your opponent hangs checkmate. It just happens sometimes, What can you do? Good game, sir. Let's do the next one. And here it is. This is black to move. See what you can do. Okay, so when I search for threats on this one, I do spot something that maybe is there, but it's not quite there, but it's maybe there, okay? And the thing that I spot is that this bishop is actually quite restrained. It's restricted in its movement. If white were to play a move like, f3, this bishop couldn't travel up this way because the rooks would capture it, and it couldn't go back to c6 because the pawn would capture it. So it only has one square to move to, which is here. And now we're thinking, if the bishop is on d5 and it has no squares to move to, what happens if he plays e4? The bishop is completely trapped, right? It would be. But, fortunately for us, we have a solution to that, which is our bishop is trapped, but his knight is also now undefended because the defender has moved. And we could take it for free. So the threat is almost there. It's a very dangerous and precariously placed bishop. But it's not under threat quite yet. Just really close. Now let's look for weaknesses on his part of the board. Okay, we've got this one, which is I think it's very obvious because I've got all my pieces aimed at it and there's 2 rooks, lined up behind it. This one is an obvious place to look. This one is also an obvious place to look because there's only one piece attacking it and one piece defending it. That's something, right? So these two, this one, sure, one attacker, one defender. We should look there. Maybe it's important. Is there anything else? And I will guess that there is not. Those are the 3 weak places we should look if we're trying to win material. Okay, well, let's try all the moves that do that stuff, right? What if we play bishop takes knight? Well, then he takes back and we win a pawn. That's pretty good, right? Not bad at all. What if we take this one? Anything happen there? Well, his rook comes in and says check. And we move our king, and then his rook moves away or he backs it up. I don't think we won anything necessarily there. You know, we could, after all that went down, we could go back to taking the pawn here. So that's something. We'd still win the pawn, but that's this weakness. That's not this one. I don't think this one amounts to much. So we can uncircle that. And what about this one? Can we get anything out of this guy? I don't see any other way to attack this piece. I just see the one capture, and that's the end of it, right? So I don't think we need to do that so long as we're not worried about this pawn getting pulled in here. And I will assure you I am not looking at that. All right. So then we're dropping into our second level of thinking. What's our worst piece? How do we improve it? Well, my worst piece is actually this one, isn't it? It's the rook that's not involved in the game at all. How do I get him involved? Well, I'm going to have to somehow, because if I don't want to put him here, here, or here, I'm going to have to somehow get this rook out of my way. So he's going to have to lift, or he's going to have to move over to A for this guy to join in the game. So really, we're looking at a rook move this turn. And that's how I came to that move. And that's how I came to it quickly. I said, hey, what about rook takes knight? Let's put it all together now. And that's exactly what I did. Hopefully you did too. We played rook takes knight, and he goes, okay, I'll take your bishop first. And I said, wait, that can't work, sir. And I took the bishop, and now there's a this whole shenanigan diagonal going on, and he didn't fix it. I don't know why he did that. Well, we go back and we do the real version of this, right? The real version that should have happened is this one. And this is where we would be, right? And whether he takes the bishop now or not, he's going to have to give up an exchange. And we end up with this endgame here with rooks. And maybe I lose a pawn there, so maybe I don't take that. Maybe I just kind of develop my rook to a better location and play the endgame. I don't know who's winning here. This is a very tricky double-edged position with rooks. Now, because this pawn's weak, then I'm having trouble with it, right? So maybe my first move would then be to trade that one off so I don't have to think about it anymore, and then I can go play the game. Let's see what the computer says. It says play h4. See? But all rook in games are drawn, so this is also a drawn rook in game. Fantastic. Let's do the last one. Oh boy, this is a doozy. Okay. So we're asking one of the questions that plagues, brand new players all the time. Should I trade queens? Oh man, that's a hard question, isn't it? It says black to move. See what you can do. Okay. So let's take it apart, right? If it's white's turn to move again, does he have a threat? And the answer is absolutely, right? This piece is hanging. He could go check and he could nab it. Or he could go check and maybe the knight blocks and he can't nab it, but he is really messing up our ability to do anything there, right? We can't develop because there's a knight in the way of everything, and he can't move the knight because he'll lose the bishop. It's all just a big train wreck. So yes, there is a threat. Queen checks, pretty big threat. We need to handle that if we can do anything else. Okay. And a move like this would be detrimental to our health. Check and takes bishop. Oof. So we know that. We search for weaknesses and we go, where are our weaknesses? Maybe there's a check here. We could look at that for a minute, right? Well, is anything weak even at all? Just the queen. And the queen is attacked once and defended once, and that's it, huh? Nothing else is weak except the rooks, but they're always weak. Okay, so what do we do then? Well, what if we could create a weakness for later on in the game, since there isn't one? We could go to what's our worst piece and how do we make it better? But I'm going to make his best piece worse first. This is one of those. And that's definitely his best piece, and that's definitely his best piece. Those are really good pieces, really good. Okay, so I'm going to work on making those worse. Here's what I did. I traded the queens. Because if his queen is more useful than your queen, they need to come off the board. And his queen was absolutely more useful. And then I said, now he's got two very powerful knights. That's scary. We get rid of one. because that also makes a weak pawn and a target for later in the game. And so trading both of those pieces off the board put us here, and now this pawn is the attackable target, and that's what I did. I said, hey, you still got a good piece, let's get rid of it. We did. Okay, we can't let him have our g-pawn, that's fine. Okay, and here comes the knight to attack the pawn. He's got to defend it. Other knights coming in. This is actually another interesting position right here, I think, to try to decide what to do. If you'd like, bonus content, right? You could try this one. This is black to move, find your favorite move. Except it's printed in the moves over to the right. And the answer is, this piece is now weak and he can't defend it enough times. So all we have to do is bring everything we have to attack it, right? We could come over, and if he was trying to defend it, which he wasn't in the game, we could find a way now to remove this piece from being a good defender. And, eventually find a way to attack this even more. And he can't defend it enough. There's no way, right? We got this. So the d-pawn goes down, but he didn't do that in the game. He just decided he wasn't going to defend it. It was the hippo in the swamp, right? And he said, I'm going to move my rook, try to do something with it. We got the pawn. Okay. And I don't know what that was all about. He goofed or didn't notice that I could do all this discovery to him, because if he moves his king into the discovered attack here, we'll just go check, and then we'll take the bishop. It's in the wrong spot. So that was kind of an awful move. But we all have those moments, right? We'll have those moments. So he had to give me the rook, and now his other rook is in the game. And now we're just up material and trying to win the game. But we know when we're up material, we like trades, right? They taste like chicken. So we go for the trades, all of them that we can. Make the game simpler and simpler, while not losing our, pawns. So we like trades. They taste like chicken. Okay. We like trades. Okay. And now we get this whole, pattern of checkmate that hopefully you spot from here. And the game ended very abruptly. Game over. Boy, I hope you got some of those. And I hope thinking about it that way helps you guys a lot. This is Dr. Hack. I'll see you guys next time. Take care now. Bye.